So I'd like to warmly welcome Alab, Erik, and Stig-Olof, who are our representatives at the COP27 meeting in Egypt. Now, Alab, we've kind of stolen her. She's not really our representative. She's actually a MAPA activist from the Philippines, but we're going to steal her anyhow because we like her. What we're going to do in this session is I'm going to ask first Alab and then hopefully Stig-Olof, if we get sound with Stig-Olof, and then Erik, of their impressions of COP27. So it's, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for going to COP27. I'm fully aware that this is no easy undertaking. Don't think I'd have dared to go there myself. I've been there as a researcher before, and I found it really difficult to know where's the place of a scientist at a COP meeting. Now I know you guys have been doing a spectacular job, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to hand over now. Alab, would you be so kind as to share with us your impressions of COP27, what you've been involved in, and so on? Talk freely, share with us. We're so glad to hear you. Alab, the floor is yours.
Yay, thank you for having me again. I apologize for not being here last week. I spoke in a human rights action with, these are the actions that are registered in the Blue Zone, and it's with a bunch of, it's cross constituency. So it's a lot of civil society is gathering and talking about the issues that they care about. So I wasn't there because I had to speak at that action and spoke about my advocacy and my personal story on that. So throughout COP27, it's my first COP, so it's a bit of a whirlwind. There's a lot of things happening. I really wanted to focus on topics like loss and damage and human rights, and of course, to meet the fellow youth movements that were here as well. But because of a lot of, what do you call this? There's a lot of pavilions. So there's a lot of events happening at the same time. So that's my general first impression of the COP, that if you don't have a clear plan of what you're doing, you're going to get lost, you're going to get overwhelmed. And that's sort of what happened to me in the first few days. But thankfully, sorry, I'm a bit sick right now. And I think that's also the reason I'm a bit sick. I've been going throughout with a lot of events and a lot of panels, just been watching and listening, but also speaking in some. So in the past week as well, I was able to sit with on the same table with the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and the Norway climate minister or environmental minister, I forgot his name. But there I shared with a bunch of other MAPA activists the impacts of climate change in our countries and our communities, and just to also emphasize and also convince them to essentially commit to their commitments from COP26 and as well as the negotiations this year. So it's a lot of talking to those people, and I also had a panel with, I've been doing a lot of talking to high level people for some reason in Germany, and so for some reason as well. So I had another a panel just the other day with the finance or the climate minister. I forgot their name as well. But though in that panel, it was very evident that a lot of these leaders speak a lot of what they want to see, or like they say a lot of good things. Actually, they say what we want to hear. But a lot, when I get to talk to the youth movements, on the other hand, when I talk to the actual youth who live there, the communities, it's not happening. For the longest time, they've been saying these commitments, they've been saying these goals, but in reality, where's the implementation? Where is the actual, I guess, like the concrete steps, the timeline of these things? It's still a long way. A lot of them have been saying that they want to phase out coal, or they want to phase out of fossil fuels at 2035, but we don't have that much time. So that's what we've been doing, trying to emphasize the urgency of this, of why we need to take action now. So we also organize an action as Fridays for Future MAPA with the other Fridays for Future last Friday. So it was a very powerful action. It was a lot of youth joining, not including those who aren't part of Fridays for Future. So it was very nice to see that kind of commitment from the youth that we will be doing this for as long as we can, especially now that we're here and we're at the same space with these world leaders. So yeah, so it's a lot of talking and a lot of walking. So like the whole venue is huge, and I believe compared from last year, it's like completely different and completely more confusing. So I think that's one of the reasons why I got sick as well, because I got really tired, and then the temperatures, I wasn't used to like super cold, and then it was also super hot because it was cold inside because of the air conditioning. But then when you go outside, the sun is blazing. So yeah. um yeah, that's it. So for me, that's a lot of my immediate thoughts, like when it comes to COP and my experience for so far.
Alab, thank you so much. Do you feel your voice is being heard?
I believe that there are times where the opportunity is there for me to be heard, but it's a matter of if even if they do listen, do they take action about it? So especially in those tables where I was with the German chancellor, when I was with these ministers, I would say my story, I would share the campaigns of my communities, but uh, if they don't actually take it to heart and like realize that, hey, this is reality for us, it's not just, these policies that you're trying to push for, it's nothing. It's basically, I said air. So I'd like to believe that I am, because I've been also talking to a lot of press and media, but when it comes to the actuality of things, it's hard to believe that that I am being heard by these powerful leaders. That's why I believe that it's the collective, it's the being with the other networks, it's being with the other movements. That's not just the youth, but also the indigenous people, the women, the other worker movements that are also here at COP, that makes like the voice powerful. It's great that we're uniting under this campaign for climate justice, and we're all agreeing that, hey, this isn't something that that should just be a sideline. It should just be like an add-on to the agenda, but it should be something that is at the forefront of what they're negotiating on. Yeah.
I think our members and I know I myself agree with you entirely from the bottom of my heart. Alaba, you're also going to join us next week. I'm hoping, if you're feeling well and you get home and everything, and I'm thinking about you and your journey. And I'm not going to surprise you with it now, but you mentioned that you tell your story about who you are. If you were to be willing to share that with us next week, so you've got a little bit of time to think about it, I would really appreciate that immensely. And it'd be very good for our members, because it's very easy for us in Sweden, however much we feel the climate crisis, for us, it still is about there's no ice on the lakes, so we can't go skating. It's a totally different game. And it's important that we actually even react to the fact there's no ice on the lakes, because of what it means in countries where like the Philippines. So if you were willing to share more with us next week, I'd appreciate that a lot. As I say, I'm warning you now so you don't, rather than jump surprising you with that.
Sure thing, I'd love to.
Well, that would be really, really good. You said that you are feeling that you're networking a lot with the Global North versions of. I mean, I'm not entirely with the lingo, but I'm guessing Fridays for Future in less affected places and areas. How can they and the likes of Researchers Desk? We're also people that care. What can we do now that's most useful, particularly in this immediate time after the COP?
I think what's really great about like connecting with them is that if their world leaders aren't listening, if their leaders aren't listening, it's them that's giving platforms, it's them that's supporting our campaigns in their own way, whether that be materially or financially, or by as a person, they're bringing these campaigns along with their campaigns out. For example, in Germany, when they're talking about the energy crisis, they could also bring on the problem of fossil fuel extraction in in our countries that are most affected, and they can also bring on the just transition campaign. So it's not just focused on their country. So it's the international solidarity that we're looking for. And with Researchers Desk, I think by being, giving me the opportunity to be in COP and beers is also a great help. So it's putting that perspective. I believe like it's what you're already doing, but putting the perspective of those who are most affected. That will make a huge difference, because of course you would do things the way you know how to do it, or you would campaign or you do research the way you were taught how to do it. But if you put it in the perspective of the most affected persons, you would have a change of priorities. You would have a change of what should the goal be, and not just for the sake of, I guess, doing research, or I guess for campaigning when it comes to the fellow youth movements that I've been talking to.
I will take those words with me, Alab. I'm actually at a research conference at the moment, which I've sneaked out of, and we will be having a social evening today, and I will share your words with the researchers who are doing the science, the acknowledgements that we're one world, and we cannot compartmentalize the atmosphere. We have exactly one of them, and it mixes very quickly. And what we do in the global north has immediate implications to the global south. Alab, thank you. Is there something you'd like to share with us more before I pass on to Stig-Olof?
I believe that there will be more actions in the upcoming days, so I'll share that next week as well. And I hope you guys, if you guys have any questions for me as well, I'd be open to answer as well.
Alab, are you able to stay with us while Erik and Stig-Olof talk, or do you need us to ask you questions right away?
No, it's all right. I can stay.
Okay, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to try and see now if Stig-Olof is online. Stig-Olof, are you hearing me at the moment? One of the amazing things about the COP, as far as I can see, is the closer you get to the negotiation area, the less good the internet is. Almost as and Stig-Olof is now in the blue zone, whereas as far as I see, they've turned the internet off. So you cannot communicate to the outside world. But I see glimpses of Stig-Olof. I'm going to give him a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to hand over to Erik. Stig-Olof, are you hearing me? Stig-Olof, if you are hearing me, please be assured that I feel confident to say that everyone here in Researchers Desks wishes you all the very, very best out there in Egypt. We are thinking of you. We are glad you are there fighting for the climate, and I hope that you heard those words. I'm going to hand over to Erik now, and if you do get a better connection, we'll hear from you. We'll hear from you later on. Erik, you tried to talk with us last week, and you were in the fatal blue zone where they've turned off the internet. You are now have handed your badge over to Stig-Olof, who is in the blue zone, and you're in the green zone. So I'm going to ask you for your first impression. You're not first impressions now. Your impressions now 1.5 weeks into the COP meeting. Erik, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alasdair, and hello, everyone. I am now in the green zone. I've been 8 days in the blue zone where all the negotiations are, and it's really crowded. A lot of suit people with ties, and I've been in contact with people who know security, and the Egyptian government, they are monitoring, all activity, and even the app that we were supposed to download, it monitors your phone and registers information about you to the authorities. So we're not in a democracy. We're in a military authoritative government. We must be aware of that. What we see, it looks so liberal, but we are constantly monitored. They have imprisoned 65 demonstrators. You know, I've only seen like 15, 20 persons trying to demonstrate outside COP, but that's it. So it's a very strange situation. But in the same time, the Egyptians are very friendly. They help you with everything in their power. The green zone is really beautiful. It's a lot of water and vegetation and arts and a lot of companies and science here. So when you see all this, you actually become pretty hopeful that there are many people who want to do the things. I joined a meeting with a Minister of Environment in Egypt, a woman that is really, really respected. And she was so proud because they have committed that 50% of the waste were going to be recycled in 2050. In Sweden, we have almost 100% last year. So the ambitions here are like 50 years back from us. So we have to understand the huge differences between the countries. And these Egyptians see themselves as very developed country with all the techniques and everything, but in reality, it's not. And my water is closed off several times each day. Suddenly you're in the shower and you have soap all over your body and the water stops. So it's these prerequisites. I have cockroaches on my floor that I almost stepped on. So, and I got a bad stomach since 10 days. So it's it's a struggle. But I have actually prepared a little screen or a presentation that I want to share with you as a help for you and me, if that's okay. So I will try to share screen. Hope this works. Can you see the screen right now? Yeah, great.
Yes, we can.
So this is the Sinai Desert. Actually, my first paper that I wrote in geography was about sand dunes in the Sahara Desert. So it's like coming back. I'll do this, the pros and cons. I call it, let's see, bad cop. We start with bad cop. USA, John Kerry, the climate responsible from the United States, he said that USA won't support loss and damage for poor countries. And they are the richest country in the world, and they say no. That is a bad sign. China, Brazil, South Africa, and India, they opposes the European tax because European Union are the most progressive climate policy in the world without concurrence. What do you say concurrence in English? Competition. So they are suggesting now in EU that countries and regions that do not have a carbon trading system that really puts a price on the carbon, they will pay a tax so that companies in Europe that are affected by the carbon tax, they are not competed. They will have the same competition rules as companies in China, for instance, because now companies in China, they can sell really cheap stuff to us because they don't pay anything for their pollution. So with this EU tax, import tax, they're trying to change this, but of course they oppose it. And then you also South Africa, India, and Brazil opposes this. They have measured. Look at the NDCs, the national determined contributions of the 59 countries all over the world, who together stands for 90% of all carbon emissions. None of these countries have a plan for carbon reduction that is enough to follow the Paris Agreement. None of them. You know, our new climate and environment minister, it's a young, promising girl, 26 years old. She knows a lot of HBTQ questions and gender questions, but she said yesterday that it's not always good to be the best in class. Just to defend that Sweden is going to raise its increase the emissions with 10%, with 5 million tons in the coming years. So I think with that quote, I lost my confidence for her, actually, in these areas. Elizabeth Svantesson, she's the finance minister. She said in an interview the day before that if we don't reach the climate and environmental goals, then we don't. Just like that. So they are abandoning Sweden. You know, Sweden has been in the pole position globally, and a lot of people here that I talked to, they have been looking at Sweden to see that welfare and climate ambitions, they go hand in hand. Really, really, really good. But now, one of the richest countries on this earth, Sweden, we have one of the highest ecological footprints on this planet per capita. We say that no, we put welfare and economic development first, and then climate. So what does that signal to the rest of the world for the poorer countries? It's extremely, extremely bad for Sweden and the world that this happens. I don't think the Swedish government understands the harm they're making. But there's a good cop. EU has decided to, you know, the Fit for 55, that from 1990 to 2030, they're going to reduce their emissions by 55%. They have increased that to 57%. Also increased their ambitions for defending, enhancing biodiversity for the COP15 meeting in Canada. So this is good, but according to the science, EU should decrease their emissions by 65%. 65% from 1990 to 2030 to follow the Paris Agreement. So this is a good thing, but not enough. China and USA, I wouldn't say they've been falling in love, but they have started to talk to each other, you know, like a therapy session with your wife. You started to talk. And that's kind of, well, in the darkness, we see this is a little light. And the UN, they have created a methane alert and response system called Mars. And that's nothing to do with the expansion of inhabited planets like Elon Musk. It's to detect methane emissions much more, because there's a lot of methane emissions from industries, petroleum industries, and that we can detect and stop, because it's such an aggressive greenhouse gas. So even if it's just lasts 8 to 10 years before it's kind of neutralized, we don't have 8 to 10 years. So the methane problem is really a great problem, and now they have a solution for this, just to identify it. And on a personal level, I've met a lot of finance people that were mostly talking about, you know, money, the bottom line, but with the natives. So every morning I meet and eat breakfast with natives from the French Polynesia, Micronesia, Papua New Guinea, several Aborigines, natives from the Amazon rainforest, and they tell the same stories. They are really badly affected by our emissions, but they have hope. They struggle. they have such power and wise knowledge. When I talk to them, you know, I'm a man of science, but I feel so humble of their knowledge of the planet, the nature, the ecosystem. It's in their blood, it's in their bones since thousands and thousands of years. So if we're going to reach to take care of this planet, we have to include the native knowledge into science and to help this planet. And it will be fun because they are great persons. They are really happy. Sometimes we don't speak the same language, but we have great fun. So I think I'll stop there and stop sharing so I can see you all. Yeah, that's a lot of more things, but I'll stop there to be considerate of your important lunchtime.
Thank you very much, Erik, for that insightful and very pedagogically delivered explanation of what's going on at the COP. I think the good cop, bad cop visualization helped a lot. I'm gonna, Stig-Olof, are you hearing me right now? Okay, I'm going to just do one last attempt. I'm going to contact Stig-Olof via WhatsApp and see if I get him. Because maybe I can get his voice through my computer. We'll just give it a go. Otherwise, we'll have to say the same thing happened to Erik last week. So this is traditional for connecting to the COP. Stig-Olof, are you hearing me? Stig-Olof? Stig-Olof, do you hear me? Okay, I think we're going to accept that we're not going to talk to Stig-Olof today, but we do wish him extremely well. I'm going to